Good morning, and thank you all for attending NYSCADV's 2022 Virtual Legislative Day of Action. My name is Brittany Galati, and I'm the Public Policy Coordinator with NYSCADV. Survivor voices must be centered in policy work to end domestic violence. This is especially true when it comes to systems change work, ensuring policies are survivor-centered, trauma-informed, and address unintended consequences that may be more visible to folks with lived experience. It is crucial that policy work uplifts both big picture systemic issues while also identifying minor changes that are deeply impactful for survivors and their families. Survivors are innately attuned to gaps in service, barriers to service, and other access issues. Folks who have been impacted by domestic violence are powerful storytellers, social change agents, and policy advocates within the movement. Weaving survivor advocacy into policy work ensures authenticity and accountability. Today, we are starting a conversation with survivor advocates who are changing the policy landscape, creating a more equitable experience for all survivors. I am thrilled to be joined today by Gina Cruz, Kim Dadu-Brown, and Jacqueline Franchetti for today's panel. Thank you all for joining us. Would you kindly introduce yourself?
Sure, I'll jump in. Hi, my name is Kim Dadu-Brown, and I am a formerly incarcerated survivor advocate.
I'm Jacqueline Franchetti. I am Kira's mom, and I'm an advocate for children going through our family court system.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gina, and I'm the president of SAFER, Survivors Advocating for Effective Reform, the CEO of Cruz Advocacy and Consulting, and a stabbing and domestic violence survivor.
Thank you all. So we know it's imperative that the voices of survivors and folks who have experienced domestic violence be centered in policy work to better meet the needs of all survivors. What role do survivors play in the policy field?
I think survivors play a big role in policy work. We know what we need. We know what needs need to be met and what needs to be done to meet those needs. We have the inside information from firsthand experience, and you can't beat that. And if our voices are heard, then more things can be done. It's less people talking about issues and more people solving, more action, more hands-on, I think, because we approach this with a different perspective.
I agree with Kim. And, real change happens when you have what I call an ecosystem merger, which is survivors, incredible domestic violence organizations like NYSCADV, and legislators working hand in hand. This is how we create real change, impactful change, better policy that is going to get directly at the root cause of what we're trying to do. I've been working with NYSCADV on Kira's Law, as well as a series of other bills to better protect children in family court, to protect them from abusive parents. And this merger that we've had going through the legislature and working together on these bills has been incredible and has really yielded amazing results.
I just want to add to that it's immensely valuable to have survivors' voices because we speak truth to power. And we not only speak it to our survivors and victims of domestic violence, we also do it to community organizations, political members, churches. We influence victim rights, funding, emergency crisis and intervention, intervention and prevention, policy changes in the workplace, and so on. There's so many things that the voices of survivor reaches in so many places.
I absolutely love that we're talking about the importance of including so many different folks in this conversation, because we know that it takes an enormous effort to kind of really get these policies passed that truly impact survivors. And Kim, like you said, it's extremely important that there's that personalization, that there are faces that go along with legislation being creative, so that there's someone in mind when you're thinking about who is this policy impacting most, to ensure that not only it's helping folks, but also that, we're taking into consideration any type of unintended consequences that may come about beforehand, before we've passed something. So this is really delicate work. What made you want to get involved?
I could start. I got involved about 25 years ago, although I'm only 21. Um, I'll never forget the first time I walked into Congresswoman Louise Slaughter's office to get more funding for domestic violence. And she immediately said to me, you need to work with us on this VAWA law. And we need you. And yes, let's work together. I had this fear in me that she was going to reject me because of all the stuff I've been through. But no, she really listened to us. She had an ear for us, and not just her, many other political leaders did too. I believe our barriers, there are barriers that prevent us from engaging. Sometimes the fear of being heard, the fear of talking to police. Many victims didn't want to talk to police. That's why we got to create a safe space like Safer to help survivors to see that their voice can create change, and that's where I say we speak up. And we have the hashtag We Speak Up because of the system. We speak up to change. We speak up to tell our story. We talk about whatever is necessary, and we provide that space for them to be able to feel comfortable to be able to speak.
I can add, when I was arrested in 1991 for murdering my abusive boyfriend in self-defense, I knew something was very wrong. I knew something was wrong with the way the whole situation was being handled, from the arresting officers to the judges to the DA and the public defender I had, who just wanted me to plead out, and didn't want to listen. And no one was listening to me. And I kept saying in court, no one's listening to me. And that's why I never pleaded out. And I knew something had to give, something had to change. There was no way that this could be right. There was no way that what was happening to me could be right and just. And I never knew that 30 years later, here I am, having done, thank you, having done a 17-year sentence and been home since 2008, working my behind off, just trying to make change and, get that DVSJA across the finish line, which we did. And just make sure that we could do all we can to obliterate domestic violence.
I call myself an accidental advocate. I wasn't on that path until a little over 5 years ago, when my beautiful, fiercely independent daughter, who was only 2 years old at the time, was murdered by her father while we were going through a custody case in New York Family Court. And what happened to Kira can happen to another child and love, where a court can give access to an abusive parent. And this is happening at staggering rates. So I knew that if I didn't speak up and if I didn't do something, that what happened to Kira could happen to someone and love.
Yes.
And similar to what you're hearing from Kim, from Gina, we have to use our voices to tell our stories. And it's not just us telling our stories, it's partnering with wonderful organizations who help amplify our voices that really make sure we get heard.
I think that's a big key, is to partner up with other organizations and people to be able to bring more numbers, to the table and speak up. So thank you for saying that, because it's important that we do that and be able to take our mess and make it a message, or our pain, and bring it into purpose.
Exactly. And I remember when I first started walking the hallways in Albany, just after Kira's murder, no one even knew that this was a problem or an issue. And the last time that I was up in Albany, my meeting calendar was so packed because people wanted to speak and hear more about this. And that's the true testament of when we do come together and what we can do when we amplify our voices.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing a little bit of background into what really got you involved in this work, because oftentimes it is really vulnerable work and um, but necessary work, so it doesn't happen anymore, as everyone is saying. So as we mentioned before, this is really challenging work. Uh, what do you think prevents more survivors or folks who have experienced domestic violence from engaging in policy work? Jacqueline, you kind of talked about what it felt like the first time you were in Albany. So, what are some of those things that kind of bar survivors from doing more policy work?
Yeah, Gina mentioned the word, it's fear. And it is, you're scared to come forward. You're scared to talk about your story. You're not sure if there's going to be ramifications. You're not sure if you're going to be believed. And that's scary. And especially, I'm in the press, I'm out forward talking about this. And that puts you into a situation where you are potentially criticized for what you say. And you know what? But at the end of the day, I know that by sharing Kira's story, it's saving lives. It's preventing this from happening to another child, another mother, another father. And we need to make sure that that happens, and that change becomes a reality. And we're seeing that happen right now. We're seeing the change begin to come into fruition. And that is incredibly rewarding.
You know, with a felony conviction, you face horrible judgment, and you get looked down upon because you committed a crime. You took a life, you went to prison, you're one of those people, and you get stigmatized. And as a survivor advocate, um speaking for myself, I've had to seek out organizations that were actually welcoming, because believe it or not, there's a lot that aren't. They're really not. They have their own agenda, and I don't fit into that. And you have to see what's needed in your area, and you have to put yourself out there. And I know for myself, by sharing my pain and by sharing my trauma, I heal and I grow. And in doing that, I also am able to help someone else maybe learn to share so they can also heal and grow, because you have to live, right? We're still here. We have to live. And if you don't come to a certain sense of peace within yourself and everything around you, and the only way I find that peace is by sharing, healing, and growing. If you can find a space to do that, then you're succeeding already as an advocate, a survivor advocate.
I totally agree. I think that it's, again, our voices speaking up and being able to tell our stories to not just survivors, but to everyone. I don't care what kind of club you're in and what kind of organization you're in, being able to share those stories in every aspect that we're able to, so that somebody around you knows that if they're dealing with it, there's help out there. That there's a safe space where they can speak. You know, those are very huge things, and healing is the key. When we speak and talk about our stories, we bring healing not only to ourselves but to those around us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to piggyback on something you just said, Gina. At the first legislative meeting I did, I cried throughout the entire thing. I
That's
mean,
okay.
they were handing me tissues, and I don't want anyone to hear this and think, oh my God, I wouldn't be able to get through it. I can't speak. I did eventually, but don't let that hold you back.
Don't
Never.
give up.
Exactly.
Don't
Never.
give up. Don't ever get up. Give up. Whatever your cause, whatever your passion, whatever your drive, don't give up.
Yeah.
I like that as a takeaway. Don't give up. We really
Yes.
see this idea of, we talk about shifting the landscape, shifting, the environments that we're working in, and ultimately to be more survivor informed and survivor engaged. And a big part of that are the things that you're mentioning right here: healing, sharing stories, having that feeling of being a part of a community, taking what you've experienced and hoping that in the future there's something that will prevent it from happening, and that you're going to be an active part in ensuring that there are more protections for folks, accessible and equitable resources for folks. We kind of touched on this a little bit already, but do you have any advice for survivors who want to actively engage in policy work? Where do they start? What if, there are some concerns around, I don't have the right prerequisites, I don't have, the skill set, or I don't have a degree in this? Where do folks really kind of start?
I didn't have a degree when I started speaking. So you don't need a degree, you need your voice. You need to be able to know that there's a space there, the safe space there for you to be able to speak, not just speak to victims and survivors, but to judges, counselors, lawyers, advocates everywhere that are trying to hear your story. The first part is being able to tell your story to be able to heal, and going to some place like Safer, and being able to come together with men, women, and the LGBT community to be able to say, okay, what is going on in our community? What is lacking? What did you experience that we need to work on together to speak up? And being able to have that space for them, but also know that it takes time to heal. So a lot of times just being okay with not saying nothing sometimes. When someone joins you, it's okay for them not to speak. Give them their time, give them some time to be able to say, okay, I can speak today about my story. Okay, let them sit back and listen to whatever's going on until they're ready.
Okay, I'll jump in there. I think that looking into what you find comfortable to do, if it's going, if as far as domestic violence, if it's going to a meeting at the local battered women's shelter, yeah, you don't have to say anything, just go. The empowerment is in movement, and just going. You don't have to share, you don't have to do anything you're not ready to do, but be ready to challenge yourself to do better and to grow. Growing is hard. It's hard for a little seed to break through the dirt to find the sunshine, but it doesn't, right? And the proof is all around us with spring and everything blooming, right? Everything's coming. It's hard to grow, but growing is essential. And find that path, find that path, find that safe space, as we were saying, find that safe space where you can get it out and be the person that you are. And don't lose yourself. Don't lose yourself in your anger or in your pain or in your grief. Don't lose yourself. Hang on to who you are and grow. Yes. And just find the space around you to do it. It's there. It's scary. It's scary, but it's there. Don't give up.
And I agree with both Kim and Gina here. The big thing is you belong, and looking at what your strengths are in terms of what you can bring to the table. Everyone has strengths. And some people, I know I communicate well. So for me, communicating the press was a great way for me to get my message across. But that's not for everyone. Right. You can be an incredible writer. You can be an incredible person at gathering people together. There are so many ways in which you can be involved. So really look at what makes you happy, what makes you feel powerful, what makes you feel like you're healing through this too, and embrace that and figure out that's the way that you can move forward with this.
Thank you for saying that, Jackie, because, a lot of times we want people to do things, and we need to find out what their talents are and what they can deal with. So I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you all are hitting on too is this idea of support networks, of ensuring that you have folks that you can reach out to, who are going to support you 100% no matter what, regardless of what you're comfortable with. And there's always going to be a space for you in policy work. There's always going to be in the sense you do belong there. But for those days when you have those questions or start questioning things, you have that really powerful support network who's there to catch you.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. And when you work on policy, it is the wackiest thing that ever happens. Well, hasn't. You're getting the reaction already. Some bills pass like this, and some are like, "What in the world? Why isn't this moving?" It's it's almost like each bill has its own personality, its own person, somewhat, and you just have to be. If you can walk in with an open mind and open heart, and what I embrace is, I don't look at the end of the tunnel. I look at the journey, and if you enjoy the journey, this is going to be an amazing ride.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
I know that it's speaking for how important the voices of the survivor advocate, the DVSJA would never have made it across the finish line. And the people we have gotten out of prison under this new law would not be home right now if it were not for the voice of all of us survivor advocates who literally laid our trauma at the feet of these legislators and just testified repeatedly for 10 years. It was our voices that would not stop, that made them eventually see the light in what we were doing. And so I just want to say how powerful we can move mountains. We can get things done.
Yes, and then they know you. So they know you can move mountains. So they count on you, and call on you. With SAFER, we've been involved in getting fair access law done, getting paid leave for the city of Rochester employees, for their families and victims there. We also help with the address confidential law. So it's like they know you, so they're coming to you and saying, "Oh my God, can you help us advocate and amplify this?" Or if we're creating it, it's like what Jackie said. We have to be patient. It's not going to go to go through the first time it's presented.
It might.
It might. We cross our fingers. There's some that have, but there are plenty of times that there haven't been. We need to correct this. We need to correct that. Change this or change that. And there's only at certain times that they do these, throughout the year or so. Just have patience.
Have patience. And what your Kim and Gina are also starting to talk about is, I just introduced a bill a few weeks ago, and members of the media and senators and assembly members called me and said, "What do you think about the bill?" And I'm like, "It's great. I worked on drafting it." You become that voice to them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we want to have your opinion on this too. And that's where you can get, and that's when you've really made some incredible traction.
Absolutely. So similarly, to end our panel here, what advice would you have to the advocates, community members, folks who are here right now, who are getting ready to go chat with their elected officials?
I would say to them, listen to what the community needs. Okay, listen to the voices of domestic violence survivors and victims. I will never forget that about 10 years ago, Catherine Cerulli had a vision to end domestic violence victim having to tell their story over and over and over again. Whether you're telling it to a counselor, to a police officer, a judge, an agency, it's like you're telling your story over and over and over again. When she wanted to create a one-stop shop. And it was the first of its kind to be able to bring order of protection in the nation, the first in the nation to do an order of protection via Skype. And HEAL is in the 5th year of it being around because of her listening to people like me and other survivors in our community. She wanted to, hear the voices of us and know what it is that helps to create change. But there's fear. You just got to continually see what is going on in your community with survivors. What are the needs? And not just with them. Look at what's going on with the judges, the police, the counselors, and everything in the community.
Yes, and if there needs to be change, don't be afraid to speak up about it. Policies are made to change and be updated. There are amendments all the time. Don't be afraid to speak up and change, because people get into this same rut. They default back to the same answer and the same. I'm seeing that right here in Rochester with the violence. Everybody talks a good game, but nobody's out on the street trying to do anything. And that's just a small example, but I'm saying be about it. Don't talk about it. And I think maybe they don't know how to be about it. And guess what? That's what we're for, because we've walked the walk, so we can talk the talk with you. So don't be afraid to talk with us and to join hands with us and to move forward together. That's what I think a big takeaway is. If you don't know exactly what to do to become active, to make change, because you're supposed to care, right? So if you don't know what to do, ask us. We'll help you. We'll help you be active, be about it.
And speak up.
That's right.
And what you're hearing from Kim and Gina is anything is possible here. And it's all up to you of what you want to do. If you are going to be tenacious, if you are going to keep going for this, doors will open. You might have to knock on doors 15 times before they do. And sometimes that door might not open for years, but it will. And, one of the big things for me when I first started doing this was I had to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and doing things that are outside my comfort zone. I'm not somebody, and I don't think many people sit here and say, hey, I want to cold call people. You know what? Do you know how I got to go know NYSCADV? I made a cold call. And this is how I got involved with NYSCADV. And it's one of the best cold calls I made. You have to do things that are outside your comfort zone. And nothing obviously that's bad, but things that are not, it may be intrinsic to you and you'll have to do that. But the results can be incredible. And working with NYSCADV has been a game changer in terms of bringing forward legislation and that's led to so much movement in the family court space and protecting children. And I'm forever, forever thankful for it.
And just the one final thing that I would like to add to advocates is to know your resources. Know the resources that are available in the community, in the state, and nationally. You never know what phone call you're going to get. Okay. So being able to have those resources and knowing those resources, it truly helps when you get that call to help someone.
Yeah.
Yep. Can I just add just one more thing? As far as most people, who haven't experienced domestic violence or trauma, I'm so happy for you that you haven't had to experience this. But if you have, you may not understand where people are coming from. You think you do, but you can't learn that in a book. And you can't learn that at a lecture or at a seminar. And if you haven't been incarcerated and you don't know what DV is, and you don't know what it's like to be afraid of the person you sleep next to, then maybe you don't know the triggers that you are invoking with the person that you are speaking with. So just having a trauma-informed approach and allowing the survivor advocate to give you that insight to someone because we've been there.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And you'll find so many people have shockingly similar stories.
Mm-hmm.
I was just yesterday at a lunch and I was talking about what happened in my daughter Kira's case. And 3 people at the table of 10 shared similar stories of how they were scared and terrified for their own child. And this wasn't something, I wasn't in a group that was advocates. This was just women who were at a table. And, it's amazing what happens when you share your story, how it opens up others.
Absolutely. So Kim, Jacqueline, Gina, thank you so much for being a part of this panel today. This is just the beginning of this work, so be sure you're going to see these faces again. I thank everyone for joining us today for NYSCADV's Legislative Day of Action. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, NYSCADV, and good luck, everybody.
Thank you, NYSCADV. Thank you.
Thank you, Queens.